The twin moons of Carina floated in the sky, casting a soft silver glow over the grand hall of the Crystal Embassy. Human diplomat Jack Rayner stood near the entrance, hands behind his back, his eyes scanning the alien architecture. He had seen many worlds, but this one felt different, elegant, quiet, almost sacred. Today was meant to be simple, just a formal introduction between humans and the Quirinari nobles. No negotiations, no deals, just goodwill and greetings. That's what he was told from the opposite end of the room. She entered Serenia of House Veliar. She was tall, graceful, and glowing slightly. Her skin a soft lavender and her eyes deep silver. She wore a flowing robe made of a fabric Jack couldn't name, shimmering like moving water. A small round device hovered near her neck, her personal translator. Jack smiled politely and bowed slightly. Jack Rayner, Earth representative. The translator spoke for him in her language with a gentle chime. Serenia tilted her head, then smiled softly. "I am honored to meet the voice of a new world," the translator echoed. They walked side by side through the hall, admiring the sculptures and gardens between the glass walls. Everything seemed peaceful, slow, and almost too perfect. A calm voice echoed from the hallway speaker. "The delegation is delayed. Please wait inside the garden chamber." The doors opened automatically, revealing a private space filled with glowing flowers and soft cushions. Serenia motioned for Jack to sit, and he did. They talked for a few minutes about Earth, about stars, about simple things. Jack found her curious and kind, though a bit formal. She asked him questions about human families, food, and relationships. He chuckled and said, "We're not as strange as you might think." She smiled gently, then leaned in closer, her voice lower. "May I ask a very personal question?" Jack hesitated, then nodded. "Sure." She placed her hand gently over her chest, and her silver eyes locked with his. Then she said something softly in her language, something delicate, careful. The translator blinked once, then translated her words into English, loud and clear. "Would you like to take my purity now?" Jack froze, his heart pounding. He blinked, confused. "I'm sorry, what?" The translator repeated the line again, this time slower. Jack's face turned red. I mean, is that part of your customs?" Atinia tilted her head slightly. Still calm, but a small blush rising on her cheeks. She waited, watching him carefully, thinking it was some strange alien greeting, or perhaps a bonding ritual humans didn't understand. Jack slowly nodded. Except, he whispered. She stood, walked over to a silk curtain, and closed it. The garden chamber dimmed automatically, flowers glowing brighter as shadows softened the room. Serenia returned, sat beside him, and slowly reached for his hand. Her touch was light, her eyes gentle. Jack's heart beat like a drum, his mind spinning with questions he didn't dare ask. In that quiet chamber, surrounded by alien beauty and soft lights, something sacred began. What Jack thought was a ritual of greeting was something far more serious. Serenia whispered soft words as she moved closer. He didn't understand the language, but her eyes, her breath, her heartbeats told him everything. It wasn't until hours later, after the act was done, that a quiet alarm blinked on the translator. "Warning. System reboot initiated. Recent translation accuracy, 46%. Jack stared at the message in horror. He turned to Serenia, who now looked away with trembling fingers touching her lips. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. She stood slowly, her hands brushing her gown back into place. Her face was calm, but her eyes were filled with storm. "I thought you were kind," she whispered, not through the translator, but in raw English, broken and soft. Jack froze. "Serenia, what did you say earlier, exactly?" She looked at him, hurt flashing in her silver eyes. "I asked if you would stay close to me." She said, "Not this." Jack felt like the floor vanished under him. One mistranslated sentence, one nod. And he had broken something pure. Something sacred, outside the chamber. Footsteps echoed, the delegation had arrived. But inside? 2 lives had already changed forever. Jack didn't move for a long time. He sat in silence while Serenia stood near the curtain, her back to him, her fingers trembling slightly. The translator device hovered near her shoulder, silent and still. A soft red light blinking at its center. The only sound in the room was the quiet hum of the garden's glowing flowers. He wanted to say something, anything, but the words refused to come. Serenia turned her head slowly, her face calm again, but her eyes distant, unreadable, without a word. She walked out through the far door, leaving Jack alone. Surrounded by beauty he could no longer enjoy. Moments later, 3 guards entered. Tall alien figures in silver armor. They looked at Jack without emotion and gestured for him to follow. Jack stood, stiff and confused, and followed them through the long crystal halls. He was brought to a quiet chamber with a glowing table and Kirinari nobles seated around it. Serenia was already there, standing in the center, her hands folded in front of her. Eyes fixed on the floor, Jack opened his mouth, but before he could speak, one of the nobles raised a hand. The translation device linked with the room activated. Automatically, the voice was formal and cold, human. You have crossed into sacred territory. You accepted an intimate right reserved for bonded mates. Jack's heart pounded. Wait, I didn't know what she meant. The translator is not the problem, the voice interrupted. Consent was given. Action was taken. The law is clear. He looked at Serenia, desperate for her to say something, to help him explain, but she said nothing. Not yet. Her face remained calm, unreadable, the moment you accepted her offer. The elder continued. You created a permanent bond. Serenia is now yours by ancient law. Jack blinked in disbelief. Mine? I didn't intend to. You did. Another noble said flatly. Intention or not. Action seals the bond. One of the younger nobles leaned forward, eyes sharp. Was it forceful? He asked. Serenia finally looked up, her voice quiet. No, he did not force me. The room went quiet. The answer seemed to weigh heavier than Jack expected. Another noble nodded slowly. Then the bond is lawful. Though deeply troubling, Jack felt sick. He had been dropped into a culture he didn't understand, and now he had broken one of its most sacred rules without meaning to. And worse, he had hurt someone he genuinely liked. Someone who trusted him. After a moment of silence, the council leader spoke again. You will remain here until further decisions are made. You are now a subject of our internal law, not Earth's. Jack's hands clenched at his sides. I need to talk to her alone, he said. The council hesitated. Then one of them nodded. The guards took him to a separate room, far smaller and dimly lit. A few minutes later, Serenia entered, alone. They stood in silence at first. Then Jack finally spoke. Why didn't you stop me? Her voice was almost a whisper. Because I thought you understood. I didn't, he said. Pain in his chest. I thought it was a greeting, a bonding ceremony, something symbolic. She sat down on the edge of the chair. In our culture, we don't lie when speaking sacred words. I spoke carefully, but the translator changed it. Jack sat across from her. Serenia, I'm sorry. I didn't want to hurt you. She nodded slowly. I believe you. But now you're mine? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. By law, yes, she said softly, but not by choice. Not yet. Her words were calm, but something behind them shook him deeper than any punishment could. She was hurt, confused, and trapped in rules she didn't ask for. Just like him, the mistake wasn't just about lit, was personal. It was human, and it was hers too. Suddenly, the door opened. A guard entered, whispering something to Serenia in her native tongue. Her eyes widened slightly. Then she looked at Jack. Her voice tense for the first time. "My brother is coming. He will not accept this." Jack stood quickly. "Then we'll explain." "No," she said, standing too, her hand on his chest to stop him. "He doesn't want to hear explanations. He only wants blood." Jack looked into her eyes, the silver depths now sharp with fear and something else, something protective. She had stayed silent in the council chamber, but now she was afraid for him. Not herself. Outside the chamber, heavy footsteps echoed closer. The soft chime of metal against stone. Jack knew that whatever happened next, the mistake was no longer just a misunderstanding. It had become a storm, and they were standing in its center, together. The door slammed open so hard the crystal walls shook. 3 armored guards entered first, and behind them came a tall, fearsome figure draped in black and silver battlecloth, his violet skin marked with glowing tribal scars, his eyes burned like fire. He was not just any warrior, he was Prince Vale, heir to House Valyar and Serenia's older brother. Serenia moved instantly, stepping between Jack and Vale without hesitation. Her hand lifted, her voice sharp in her native language. Jack didn't understand the words, but he understood her tone. Firm and pleading, the prince's face twisted. In rage, as he shouted back, the translator buzzed uselessly, failing to keep up with the fast, heated words. Jack held his ground. Though his heart beat faster than ever, he had no weapon, no training for this kind of moment, but he refused to run, even as Vale's hand went to the blade at his side. Serenia raised her voice again, and this time she switched to slow, broken English. "Stop, brother." He didn't know. Vale growled low. He touched what was sacred. The translator finally caught up. "You were pure." "I still am," Serenia said quietly, her eyes steady in the ways that matter. Jack stepped forward now, slowly, careful not to provoke. "If you want someone to blame, blame me," he said. "But don't punish her for her translators." Failure. Vale turned to him like a beast ready to strike. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "You are nothing, human, not even a soldier. You don't deserve her breath, much less her body." Jack didn't respond with anger. Instead, he simply said, "Then test me." Serenia's eyes widened. "Jack, no." But it was too late. The room froze. The guards looked at each other, unsure if they heard right. Vale laughed, cruel and deep. "You challenge me?" he said. "You challenge a bloodied prince with no weapon, no house, and no honor." Jack nodded once. "I didn't come here to take anything, but if you believe I stole her, prove it, beat me, and take her back." Serenia turned to Jack, her voice trembling. "This is not how our world works. They don't fight for truth. They fight for possession." "I know," he whispered. "But if I run, I become the man he says I am." Vale snapped his fingers. 2 guards stepped forward. And in seconds, Jack was taken from the room, stripped of his jacket and translator, and pushed into a narrow, cold tunnel with walls that hummed with energy. At the far end was a single round door glowing red. On the other side waited a ritual Pita sacred arena used not for death, but for dominance. By entering it, Jack accepted a trial of worth. He didn't even know the rules outside the pit. Nobles gathered silently in robes of gold and silver. Standing in rows like statues, Serenia was among them, her hands folded tightly, her heart pounding. Jack stepped into the pit barefoot. The floor was warm stone, and the sky above open to stars. Across from him, Vale dropped into the ring like a thunder strike, armor gleaming, holding a curved blade that pulsed with light. There were no announcements, no introductions, only a single bell tone that echoed into the night. Jack ducked the first strike by pure instinct. The blade missed his face by inches. The second swing came faster, and Jack barely rolled away. His hands scraped on the stone. Burning raw, he wasn't a fighter, but he was human. And humans didn't give up just because they were losing. He grabbed a handful of dust and flung it into Vale's face. The prince roared in surprise, swinging blind. Jack dove at his knees, using momentum instead of strength. Both of them hit. The ground hard, the blades skidded away. They rolled across the floor, and Jack threw punches without aim, without grace. Just fury, just survival. Vale finally kicked him off, blood dripping from his mouth. But his expression had changed. There was no more laughter in his eyes, only a flicker of doubt. Jack stood again, barely, breathing hard, one eye swollen shut, but he raised his fists. Vale looked around at the nobles, then at Saranya, her eyes wide, glistening, full of something he hadn't seen in her since childhood faith. The bell chimed again, not once, but twice. The trial was over. No winner declared, because neither had. Yielded, and both still stood. Jack fell to one knee. Exhausted but not broken, Vale dropped his blade and turned his back. Walking silently out of the ring, Saranya ran to Jack, falling beside him, touching his cheek with shaking hands. "You didn't have to do this," she whispered. Jack smiled. "Through the blood, yeah, I did. Because in that moment, even without a translator, even without law, he had shown her something truer than any ceremony. He didn't fight to claim her. He fought because she was worth protecting. The night. Air was cold in the healing chamber, and the lights were low. Jack lay on a soft bio bed. Patches of glowing gel covering his bruises. His body ached with every breath. But his mind was louder than the pain. He didn't understand how a misunderstanding had led him to this place, fighting for honor in a world he barely knew, all because of a single broken sentence. Footsteps echoed softly behind him, slow and careful. He turned his head slightly and saw her Saranya, walking into the room with her robe drawn tight, her hair loose for the first time, silver strands falling down her shoulders like moonlight. She looked less like a noble and more like a girl who had something to say but didn't know how. She didn't speak at first, just sat in the chair beside him and placed a small device on the table. Wasn't the translator, it was turned off. "I want to talk," she said, her voice raw, without the machine. Her English was slow but soft. "My words, not device." Jack nodded, surprised but grateful. "Okay." She took a breath, eyes fixed on her own hands. "You surprise me. How?" He asked gently. "You could leave, no chain holds you here," she said. "But you stayed. Fought." "I didn't come to fight," he said. "I stayed because I hurt you." Even if it wasn't on purpose, she looked at him now, really looked. "You did not know our words, but you still touched me. I gave no command, no force. But it still felt wrong after." Jack's throat tightened. "I know. And I'll regret it forever if I don't make it right." There was silence for a long moment. Then Saranya stood and walked slowly to the edge of the room, her voice softer now. "I said stay close to me. That is all I asked. I felt alone that day. Many want my body, but not my soul." Jack sat up a little, pain shooting through his ribs. "Why ask me to stay close?" He whispered. Saranya turned toward him, her eyes not silver now, but stormy. "Because I read of humans, your kind touch stars with ships, but still sing songs to children. You fight, but also feel. I thought maybe you would understand. Loneliness." Jack stared at her, stunned. He never imagined a noble girl from another world had read about Earth, let alone hoped for someone like him to understand her heart. "I did not know the device would change my words," she said quietly. It turned soft into sharp love, into lust. She stepped closer, her voice shaking now. After. I thought you used me. Jack reached out slowly, carefully, and took her hand. Serenia. I didn't even know what you meant, but I promise I never wanted to use you. She sat down again beside him, and this time she didn't pull her hand away. You looked into my eyes. Not my skin, not my title. You did not run from my brother. And when I cried alone, I remembered your touch. Her words came slow, heavy, honest. I was scared, but not just of what happened. I was scared because part of me wanted it to mean something. Jack swallowed hard. It can mean something, if you let it. She looked at him for a long time and finally gave a small nod. Not of forgiveness, but of opening a door slowly creaking where a wall had stood. I don't belong to you, she said firmly, but I choose to walk beside you. For now, Jack smiled gently. That's more than I deserve. She stood and walked to the door, pausing just before it opened. Tomorrow, council will speak again, she said. My people want to erase this mistake, but I will speak. Not as noble, not as victim, but as woman who chooses her path. He watched her leave, her posture tall, her step light but steady, and for the first time since arriving on this world, he didn't feel like a stranger or a mistake. He felt like someone who had been seen, truly seen, not by a translator, but by her. The morning came with silence, but not peace. The palace halls were tense, filled with quiet stares and whispers that died the moment Jack walked past. No guards threatened him now, but no one greeted him either. He was a ghost among them present, but not welcome. Serenia was nowhere in sight. Her quarters locked under protection by her own house, and Jack had not slept. His wounds ached. But it was nothing compared to the storm rising inside his chest. What was he even doing here? Caught between two cultures, two worlds, and a girl who was never meant to be his. He paced alone in the reflection garden, the same place where the mistake began. The glowing flowers still bloomed as if nothing had changed, but everything had. Then he heard it, metal boots on stone, sharp and fast, for elite guards rushing toward the chamber. Weapons drawn, the silence shattered. Jack backed up quickly, raising his hands. What's going on? He asked. One of the guards barked something into his comm, and the door behind them burst open. Serenia appeared in a panic, her eyes locking onto Jack instantly. Run, she said. What? Why? Jack stepped forward. She grabbed his arm, her voice shaking. They came for me, not to protect, to imprison. My house believes I betrayed them. Jack stared at her in disbelief. You're a princess. They wouldn't. They did. She whispered. They revoked my name. Called me spoiled, ruined. A loud crash echoed from the corridor. More guards were coming. Not the royal kind enforcers, the kind that didn't ask questions. Serenia pulled Jack by the hand, leading him through a hidden arch behind the fountain. A small tunnel only she knew. This leads to the lower decks, the diplomat ships, she said. We're running. Jack asked. I'm choosing. Serenia replied sharply. For once. Not because of a translator, not because of law, not because of family. I choose this. He followed her, the path tight and damp, lit by faint violet lights, the palace noises fading behind them. They climbed down metal ladders and passed through old maintenance doors until they reached a quiet hangar where ships hovered like sleeping beasts. Serenia activated a control pad with her handprint. Opening the bay of a small vessel, Jack looked at her, uncertain. What happens if we leave? I lose everything, she said simply. But I already did. He stared at her, breathing hard. You sure about this? She didn't answer with words. Instead, she pressed her forehead gently to his, a gesture in her culture more intimate than a kiss. I trusted you once by accident, she whispered. This time, I trust you by choice. Just as they stepped inside the vessel, an alarm rang behind them. A voice shouting over the loudspeakers, "Target acquired Serenia of House Velier and human Jack Rayner, detained by order of council law." Jack's heart raced. "They're here." Serenia pushed the launch lever with a shaking hand. Then, "We fly," the ship roared to life, engines glowing blue. Lifting off the ground just as a strike team entered the hangar. Weapons raised, shots fired, but missed. The vessel broke through the gravity shield and soared into open sky. Jack didn't know where they were going, didn't know what the next hour would bring. But when he looked at Serenia, her eyes fierce, her jaw set, he realized this wasn't about escape anymore. It was about reclaiming her voice, her body, her choice. He hadn't saved her. She was saving herself, and now she had chosen him to stand beside her. Not because of law, but because of something deeper. Something no translation device could ever break again. Asterisk, the stolen vessel flew fast and low through the clouds of Karina's outer sky belt. Light from the twin moons flickered across the cockpit windows. Jack gripped the side rail tightly, still trying to believe what just happened. Beside him, Serenia sat quiet, her fingers steady on the controls, her breathing calm, but her eyes full of fire. They didn't speak for a while. The silence between them, not empty, but full of all the choices they made, the risks they now faced, and the bond neither of them truly planned for. "Where are we going?" Jack finally asked. Serenia answered without turning. "Somewhere old, forgotten, but safe." The ship entered orbit and dived toward a long stretch of dry land hidden between two mountain spines. Below them stood the remains of an ancient warrior temple, vines creeping through stone walls, long abandoned but still strong enough to hide in. As they landed, Jack helped her power down the ship's system. "How long do you think we have?" he asked. "Not long," she said softly. "My brother is not one to forgive. And now I've defied not only him, but the council." They moved inside the old structure, their footsteps echoing on cracked stone. The temple's air smelled of dust and old battles. A perfect place for those trying to remember who they were. Serenia stopped near an old statue, half broken but still noble. It was a warrior woman holding a crystal spear, and beneath her feet, ancient writing that Serenia traced with her fingers. "She was the first of my blood to refuse the throne," Serenia said quietly. "She gave it up for love. And they erased her from history." Jack stepped beside her. "You're not running from your family. You're repeating someone brave." She smiled slightly. "Or foolish." They rested in the temple's back chamber, lighting small power stones Serenia had taken from the ship. Shadows danced on the walls, and for the first time in days, they sat without tension. "I always thought," Serenia whispered, "that mating was something chosen for me. Arranged, discussed, scheduled. But when it happened, it was not what I imagined." Jack looked at her, unsure if she was angry again. "Or something else." "I hated you that first night," she said calmly. "Not because you were cruel, but because you didn't know how much it meant to me." He looked down, ashamed. "If I could take it back—" "No," she interrupted gently. "That's not what I want now." He looked up slowly, confused. "I want to rewrite it," she said, "not as a mistake, but as something that became real." Jack's voice was low. "You mean, start again?" She nodded, her eyes meeting his, no longer guarded, with truth this time. No machines, no titles. He reached out his hand, not to claim her, not to hold her, but to ask. She looked at it, smiled softly, and took it. The temple wind howled outside, but inside there was warmth, not just from the power stones, but from something rare and human, even here on a distant world that night. They didn't speak of laws or errors or bloodlines. They spoke of their homes, of childhood dreams, of stars and strange foods. Serenia laughed for the first time, truly laughed, and Jack felt something shift in the air between them. They were no longer prisoner and noble, no longer victim and mistake. They were just two souls in a storm, and for the first time since it all began, they felt free. The sun rose slowly over the broken temple, light slipping through cracked walls like golden threads. Jack stood at the edge of the ruins, watching the horizon, his body still sore, but his heart steadier than it had been since he arrived on this world. Inside, Serenia slept wrapped in an old woven cloak, her breathing slow and calm, for once untouched by duty or fear. But peace never lasted long on Karina. A sharp noise broke the stillness, a high-pitched hum growing louder from the sky above. Jack turned instantly, eyes narrowing as he spotted the shape of a royal skycruiser descending through the clouds. Its design sleek and aggressive, glowing with the mark of House Velyar. He ran back inside the temple, heart racing. "Serenia, wake up." She sat up. Fast, already knowing, already feeling it. They found us, before either could move. The cruiser landed outside, and a projection lit the inner walls. A tall figure appeared in golden light, was Vale. Her brother, but not dressed for war this time. No blade, no armor, just the ceremonial robe of an heir. His voice filled the chamber. "Serenia, daughter of Velyar, come out. We must speak before the council ends this with blood." Jack looked at her, ready to run, ready to fight again if he had to. But Serenia's expression surprised him. She wasn't afraid. She was calm, her jaw tight, her shoulders square. She walked to the open archway and stepped into the light. Jack followed close behind. Vale stood on the ground before them, arms folded. Behind him were council guards, but their weapons were not raised. The air felt strange, not hostile, but tense, waiting. "You broke every code," Vale said sharply. "You fled, you stole a ship. You made it outside the law." Serenia raised a hand, silencing him, her voice clear, loud, not in English, not translated, just pure Kirinari. But Jack understood, not the words, but the strength behind them. Then she turned to Jack, slowly and calmly took his hand and raised it high before them all. "She chooses," one of the council elders said in surprise, stepping forward from the cruiser. "She invokes the old right." Vale's eyes widened. "That law is dead." "No," the elder corrected. "It is forgotten, not dead. The old right was a path once used by nobles who wished to marry beneath their caste. It was risky, permanent, and almost never used, but it was absolute. If a woman of royal blood invoked it before witnesses, her choice overrode all other laws. "You're serious?" Jack whispered, barely able to believe it. Serenia looked at him, her voice soft. "Now, there is no mistake." The elder stepped forward again, raising a ceremonial seal. "Do you both accept the bond, knowing it cannot be undone by family, by court, or by war?" Jack didn't hesitate. "Yes." Serenia's hand squeezed his. "Yes." The seal flashed with golden light, and in that moment, it was done. Vale turned away, defeated not by force, not by violence, but by a sister who chose her own path. The cruiser left without a fight, the guards vanishing into the sky. Later, back inside the ruins, Serenia and Jack sat by the old warrior statue once more. The air still, the future uncertain, but theirs, strange, she said softly, resting her head on his shoulder. "A machine failed, and still brought me truth." Jack smiled. "Guess some mistakes are meant to happen." Serenia closed her eyes. Not a mistake anymore. No longer bound by translation errors, broken laws, or old fear. Now, they belonged to each other by choice, by voice, by a bond no device could ever mistranslate again.